Good morning. It's July 10th, 2024, and we are here for the Board of Commissioners Franklin County meeting. It's 9 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order, and please ask that you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any additions or corrections to the current agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull item number 5 from the regular business agenda. The item's not quite ready for this process just yet, so I'd like to pull that.
I believe that's item 4.
Building services contract between Franklin County and the City of Connell.
Oh, that one's not ready either? I thought the capital improvement plan wasn't ready.
I believe that one got finished and is ready.
Yes, we're looking at item 5 to pull.
Okay. All right, thank you.
We'll pull item 5 from the regular business.
Another item, I'd like to pull the approval of minutes. There was a couple of Scribner's errors that felt that it would be proper to pull the minutes for consideration next week. So pull the approval of minutes as well.
Thank you. Any other additions or corrections?
No, with that, I move for approval of the amended agenda.
We have a motion, looking for a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approval of warrant registers and payroll rosters.
Yes, this morning we have 2, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of salary, clearing payroll, emergency management payroll in the amount of $1,246,147.46, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 members of the auditor's office.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of fund expenditures in the amount of $595,257.37, and again, it has been reviewed and signed by 2 members of the auditor's office.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to public comment. Is there anyone in the room for public comment? If so, come forward, and you have 3 minutes. Please state your name.
Good morning, Angie Manarola. There's a lot of side conversations going on about the recovery center, so I once again want to ask you guys to reach out to Benton County for a bi-county meeting with the 6 commissioners, the board members of the bi-county advisory committee, and the board members of the recovery coalition. That way everyone can get the same information, same updates, and we can have some discussions. And also, the next advisory meeting, the bi-county advisory meeting, is tomorrow at 2 o'clock at the Benton County Commissioner's office. And you're all invited. Thanks.
And that's up on the 3rd floor. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I was in contact with Will McKay, County Commissioner for Benton County yesterday, and we talked, and they'll be getting in touch with you about a bi-county meeting for crisis center update, OPD, and 911 emergency radios. We do need to get together as ASAP with Benton County on these topics, and probably a couple more that I can't think of right now.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room for public comment? Is there any callers on the phone? All right. Moving on to approval of consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the consent agenda items 1 and 2 as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like this discussion on item 2. I'll second with discussion on item 2.
All right. Item 2, discussion.
Looking at this, it is about 9/11 contract, and after reading through it, I just got questions as to, we're talking about 9/11. Can't get this pulled up right now. I don't know what's going on this computer. Yeah, or summary. It says here, State Military Department 9/11 office contract for the period of July 1, 2024 through August 15th of 2025 for $28,500. These funds are to be used for travel and training for the 9/11 coordinator and our information services personnel still involved in 9/11. Funds will go to further tasks that will be managed by CCOM. So I'm just looking for more clarification as to why we got funds going for this, for travel, when we already have travel funds in every department.
So that money particularly is state money that's passed to the military, and then the military then sends the money back out to the counties. Twice a year, our E911 coordinator is Cheryl Brunk, and she travels to those mandatory meetings, and her travel is covered by this.
And it also states a Washington State Military Department. I didn't know Washington State had a military department.
They do. Yep, and they're in charge of all 911 operations across the state and the distribution of monies, et cetera, along with search and rescue and some other statewide issues that take place.
Interesting.
So
Yes.
this contract here is just a signature that we do annually so that we can have access to those funds that offsets so the county's not paying for the travel and those type of things. It's just a
Okay.
circle.
Who's in charge of the Washington State Military Department? Who oversees that?
The state of Washington.
Which is our governor?
Yes.
Is he in charge of this?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. And the
What kind of-
monies, these monies actually come out of cell phone taxes and those type of things that communication, not the 2% or the 002% communication tax, but the E911 taxes that are collected on our phones and those type of things.
So is it a different uniform, or is this the Washington State Patrol?
I think
It's the National
Washington-
Guard.
Yeah, the National Guard, and then the Washington State Patrol has a play in it because of some of the state E911 systems that are in place.
And I know that they are his protection as governor, the Washington State Patrol, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with this.
No, I'm just trying to figure out what color uniform this is and where
Well,
do I...
if you go over to Olympia, you're gonna walk up into Olympia, into the governor's office, and you're gonna see state patrol uniforms
Yeah.
doing the protections.
That's why I was asking if this was the Washington State Patrol or if it's a different uniform.
No, I guess it's probably best to say their communications division has a play in this money.
All right.
All right, thank you, Sheriff, for that.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion on Resolution 2024-0140? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
We have a motion and a second already,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman.
All in favor of consent agenda items 1 and 2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to regular business, Resolution 2024-0161, initiating a county road project, countywide guardrail improvements presented by Craig Erquin. Good morning, Craig.
Good morning, Board. Before the Board, as the Chair stated, is Resolution 2024-0161, initiating the County Road Project 639, For county guardrail improvements, this project will replace obsolete guardrail on Blanton Road and Sage Hill Road, along with adding additional guardrail to the Pasco-Colotus Highway in a couple of places. This project is part of our 6-year transportation plan, and this will be followed by Resolution 2024-0162 to approve the local agency prospectus and enter into a local agency agreement with the Washington State Department of Transportation for the said project. Can I answer any questions?
This sounds like you're updating the guardrails, is that
Yep,
correct?
that's
Yeah.
correct.
All right.
Yeah, we have a couple of places where it's obsolete and a couple of places that we would like to add some guardrail.
Appreciate the thorough packet. I don't have any questions. You
All right.
answered them.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Erdman, these, I'm looking, I haven't found it, but these will be all metal.
Yes, that's the current standard. It's
Yes.
called Type 31. They're generally with steel post and a polymer block out.
Yes.
Like you saw, if you've been down to Burr Canyon since we replaced that, it will be similar to that. And it's a little funky for an old guy like me because it sits a lot higher than what I designed back in the day. It was 27 inches. Now I think it's 31 or 33, and it always
think
looks
it's-
wrong. It always looks wrong to me, but that's how it is now.
It's the height of the vehicles these days.
Yeah, it is. It
Yeah.
is, and it's very effective. Works very well.
All right, thank you.
All right, no further questions. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of Resolution 2024-0161 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Resolution 2024-0162, presented by Craig Erkman.
Again, this is the follow-up resolution to the previous one. This lets us, this approves the prospectus for the projects and lets us enter into a local agency agreement with WashDOT to obligate the money and funding for this project.
Puts the plan into action.
Pardon?
Puts the plan into action.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of Resolution 2024-0162 as presented.
I second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Bid opening for therapy court remodel, presented by Jennifer Wagner, Director. Good morning.
Good morning. We did a mandatory, Franklin County Facilities did a mandatory walkthrough on the 28th, and we had 5 construction companies present at that mandatory walkthrough. We posted to the Franklin County Graphic on the 20th and the 27th, and also on our Franklin County website on the 20th, and has been posted there since the 20th. We're going to now open the one bid that we have received and proceed from there.
All right. Is that this one right here? So we have one bid from MP Construction. The total of the bid is $43,805.03, and I also see that they have submitted their certificate of insurance, naming Franklin County as additional insured. Have you had a chance to look over the contract at all, or?
That we're just receiving bids right now. We'll review the contract and speak to the vendor.
All right, so with only one bid, is
The-
there more?
There's
the
there's only
deadline's
one
been-
way to go.
There's the deadline has been met with.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Thank you.
I'd just like to mention that this work is going to be covered by a grant from District Court for the opioid, and there's another grant that also covers the cost. So
And what is going to be the scope of the project?
they're designing 6 offices going down a hallway that now presently has 5. And they're going to have a pay window, also move the security door, so.
All right.
Next steps would be,
Speak to the vendor and proceed with the contract.
so there would need to be a resolution to accept this bid, is that correct?
Correct.
So would that,
It goes with the resolution and the contract go together.
so that would be next week?
We'll have to see how quickly I can get the paperwork back from them and civil, so.
Think that time is of the essence on this project. That would be good to move as quickly as we can.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so thank you, Jennifer. Do you want this contract so you can look it over? Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 2024-0163, presented by Derek Bratton, the adoption of the 2018 to 2024 capital improvement plan.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, this was brought to the board for initial, then we moved it to a workshop. We workshopped that, and we're here today. Happy to answer any questions. Again, just would like to remind, this is kind of more of a report document. Departments will report to me, and/or I coordinate with, say, the auditor's office. My department doesn't question the expenditures or anything like that. That's not our job. All we're doing is listing it. The big difference here between this document and the capital facilities plan, what this also does, one thing I don't know if I mentioned before in my other presentations, is it broadens the scope of things that could potentially have, say, REIT dollars or things like that spent on it. The projects listed in the capital facilities plan section of the comp plan only addressed levels of service. So it's generally roads, because we don't provide other. That's generally what's listed in the CIP is those types of projects. The CFP. The CIP, this document will also include projects that are not directly related to levels of service. Say, for example, the presentation that was just had regarding the therapy, or the therapy court. That would not show up in the capital facilities plan because it's not directly related to levels of service. However, it will show up in the CIP. And that's kind of the nuance, the difference between those two documents. And then, so we're just asking for adoption. We will be bringing it back next year after budget, where we will lay out the next proposed 6 years following this. And then we'll vet those projects. You know, the board kind of says, yeah, we're okay with this plan. It's very similar to the STP, the road plan, the 6-year plan for the roads. This will come to the board each time, and then it's an opportunity for the board to kind of look at things, projects and proposals. Do we want to stick to this? Do we want to move it out? Or do we want to drop it? Or even expedite, move something that's planned later up forward because an opportunity arose. So that's kind of what this document is. It also is controlled and maintained by the board, meaning that they can open and close it whenever you want. Whereas the capital facilities plan is bound by the comprehensive plan amendment process. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, so in this plan, it states that impact fees and development payments, that the county does not have any, but the city of Pasco has impact fees for new development of houses for young families, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We don't have any jurisdiction over Pasco.
Correct.
They set that up themselves.
Correct.
Just want to make that clear that the county has no impact fees on new development.
The only time it would occur is at the point generally of, say, like a subdivision or something where they're having a negative impact to our road system. Then they would be based on a specific analysis of that proposal. They would pay a proportional share that's been established by Public Works.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
with leading on to what Commissioner Didier said, would you speak just briefly to like the impact fees that have been levied along Burns Road in that area where we abut the city?
Okay. Oh, you mean like school? That type of stuff?
Not school impact fees, but Burns
Park.
Road, there's been fees collected over a number of years for
Okay.
the improvement of Burns Road, certainly west of Road 100 or Broadmoor.
Right.
There's been funds collected on that. And so could you speak to that just briefly?
I will to some degree, but I may ask Mr. Erdman to speak more to it. But the generally is, yeah, there's, again, direct impacts, like I mentioned before. Those dollars are pooled, and then they're generally used as a match, or those dollars are leveraged. We don't, no jurisdiction I'm aware of collects impact fees that come anywhere near the actual cost. Impact fees are based on a proportional share, including the jurisdiction. The jurisdiction always has a proportional share that they have to contribute as well. It's done through different mechanisms and how that's determined. It could be in kind, it could be cash, it could be whatever. So that's my understanding for Burns Road. When it comes to the school impact fees, those occur during a SEPA process. However, at this point, all the developers seem to understand, negotiate, go talk to the school district first, get all that figured out. Because what happens is, if they haven't done that during the SEPA process, the school district submits a comment stating we're going to appeal this determination if they don't pay their impact fees. The city does some different things with regard to, basically they collect their impact fees at time of hookup for water and sewer service, or when you go and pay for that service. However, because of some changes that they've made down in like the donut holes, they no longer really serve our new subdivisions because we don't have the density that they're looking for. So we're kind of limited to 1 acre subdivisions in the donut holes right now.
So speaking of the impact fees, in a couple of different questions here. So our impact fees that we do collect for impacts that are measurable, so they are pooled. They're not regionally or area specific. They're just
No, I
pooled
believe
in
they
general.
are.
They are
They
area
are
specific.
designated
Okay.
to an area. I know the park fees that we charge are.
Okay, and then the school impact fees, the county does not
We
leverage
don't,
that fee.
that has to do with basically a SEPA process, and that's basically a negotiation handled between the school district and the developer.
And so the
it's
county-
not from us.
So the county handles that differently than the city, where the
Correct.
city administers and charges that fee on
And
behalf.
collects it.
And collects it, whereas the county does not do that. The county stays
Correct.
out of that.
Correct.
Okay. As Mr. Didier alluded to, development's getting very expensive, and I appreciate us not leveraging absorbent fees on that. No further questions.
Questions, Commissioner Didier?
Oh, I'm good.
All right. No more discussion. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of Resolution 2024-0163 as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Request for consensus. Margot Wilder, Director of HR. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. Yeah.
I'm just standing here before you this morning to find out of your consensus of whether you would like to post the position of County Administrator. And I know I sent you some information kind of late yesterday. I do apologize for that. But there is a job description, and then there was some associated possible authorities. So if you are interested in posting for the position of County Administrator, I would also need to know if you want to post as a job description as is, if there would be any changes to that, and then even ask if you have any ideas of where you would like to post that position.
Questions? Discussion?
I did get your information, didn't have a chance to fully review it. I did read through it in brief. I am in favor of posting the position soon. I don't believe we're quite ready. I think we need to be able to go through that a little bit more completely. And as far as location to do that part I don't have a good answer for you. Would need to think about that a little bit further.
It is a fairly specialized position, so I wouldn't say staying at our standard postings, if that would be what you're interested in.
I am too of the same consensus that we need more time to look it over
Okay.
and see which direction we want to go. I know all three board members have met individually with representation from Yakima County, and Yakima County does not have a county administrator. So I think we need a little more time for more discussion on which avenue we want to proceed with.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, there's only 3 counties in eastern Washington that have a county administrator. We were one of them. The other 2 are Benton and Spokane, much larger counties than ours. I, as a county commissioner, are with this budget crisis that we're facing, and am looking at maybe the 3 commissioners schedule another day for workshops for the agenda items, and that we take on this task and eliminate these salaries, benefits, retirements, and that we take on more of a task of leading this county and getting the business done for the county.
Okay. So I'm gathering the consensus is no, we are not posting. You're going to take some
Not
time.
at this time, but thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate their
Sounds good.
presentation.
I do have one other request, though. It's kind of important. I'm going to kind of read my notes just so I don't butcher my request. It's regarding the email account for Mike Gonzalez. It's pretty standard for our Information Services Department to take key positions that have been vacated and have those emails be viewed by another member of the department for any important information. His specifically, I would mention that possible for the public records requests and any invoices that might come in. In their process for information services, they always ask for the department head's approval. As such, Mike's position, you're the next go-to for those department heads and that approval. So we would need consensus to transfer that email to another employee. My recommendation would be the administrator assistant in the office. We also need an out-of-office information put on there, and we would need consensus for that too. Did you have more to add?
Yeah, if I could just chime in a little bit on that. Mike was listed and is listed as the public records officer for the county. That presents a huge issue. One of the issues I hope the board considers of a lot of the work that needs to be done as far as an interim process of designating who is going to be the one responsible for handling those requests to ensure that we're not getting out of compliance with following through, making sure that we have that oversight. So just another thing for the board to think about. There's a lot of duties, and I think this is worthy of a workshop discussion to look at everything that a county administrator can do and does for the county, including those kind of tasks, being the one responsible for receiving requests to the commissioner's office. And I'll just speak briefly. The problem that I think that you have with Yakima has faced issues with Open Public Meetings Act violations when you don't have a designated county administrator that's there to serve at the direction of the board. That requires, sometimes you're going to have day-to-day questions that come up. Having a designated administrator, someone to act on the board's behalf with the board's input and direction, that gives a daily person that has the function of maintaining the operations of all the business that does come up. So while you certainly could do it, I think there's a lot more problems to it. I've reached out and talked with the county prosecutor from Yakima to see how that works when the board considered that. And there's certainly some issues, I think, for risk and liability to the county. It's certainly a shift of work. It does require more frequent meetings. I believe Yakima has 3 county board meetings each week, and it still leaves a couple days of the week where there's going to have to be daily decisions that are made. So I would just throw it out there in addition to just coming up with something like answering something as simple as an out-of-office response. Mike was taking care, or the county administrator position takes care of a lot of daily operations. And so without having a person reviewing and having the authority to respond to emails on behalf of the county, that creates an issue. So the board's going to have to make a decision on an interim basis of who is the board designating to handle the day-to-day operations those decisions until we have a replacement, whether that's an interim county administrator designating somebody else to fill that role, or a combination of people to fill that role. Those are just some considerations for the board. So I support, obviously, getting the clear direction that Margot is requesting just on an interim basis, but when she mentions the public records issue, that's just one of many areas that is handled by the county administrator. So I want the board to be mindful of that, figure out a interim opportunity of how to handle that.
All right, thank you.
What
Appreciate the
would your
comment.
recommendation be on who this public records officer is, and how, what is your feeling on the proper way to handle that in this interim?
Well, our office gives legal guidance and input, but we're certainly not in the position to be the public records officer for the county. So we give that legal advice both to the sheriff's office. I think probably the sheriff's office has probably the most voluminous requests that come to the county based on the nature of the work and operations there, whether that's a request from inmates, defendants, attorneys, victims of crime, members of the public, issues like that. So that's certainly something to consider. So we give legal guidance to those requests, but designating a point of contact, usually that's someone within the commissioner's office to handle that. If you want to designate someone in the interim to take on those additional responsibilities, we certainly will continue to give the legal guidance for that.
And just to add to Sean's point, we have been looking at this, my office, and actually we have a meeting on this very subject today regarding responses to public records requests. It does seem to make a lot of sense to have a public records officer centralized in the county, and our policy kind of says that. The reason being is then we don't have to train 13 people in every department to be public record officers for an elected department versus a department head that's not an elected. But that will require buy-in from those elected departments because we don't have direct authority over them. The other issue would be if we are going to designate someone in the commissioner's office, they may not have the bandwidth to do, because we've been getting a proliferation of public records requests as of late to handle the influx of those requests. So it is a concern from our office that we want someone in under the commissioners who's a public records officer, which is consistent with our policy and can handle those. I think with the sheriff's office, they do get a high volume of those, and they're typically, even with cities, which are more top-down than counties, you see the law enforcement branch handling their own records requests. There's security reasons for that. The type of information they handle is sensitive. So it's typical that the municipal entity will have one officer that handles sort of everything but law enforcement records, and then law enforcement sort of does their own thing, and then we are the legal advisor for everyone. Anyone who has a question, but there are certain security clearances. I have to have those. That's why I know of that, to even assist in their responses, and I don't know that it would certainly have to be something the sheriff would have to buy into, and I don't know that he would want to anyway. But I do think that having it more centralized with someone who's highly trained in the county that handles everything but law enforcement records requests would be a good move. And again, it does seem like it's consistent with our policy, which we are also looking at. We should have some recommendations on that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So currently, our county administrator would receive the public records request. IT would do the request, correct?
Sort of. If it was a request for records that IS might have, then they would be involved in that. But most of the heavy lifting was done by, or is being handled by Jennifer Medelis in that office. And so it's something that's slowly started to consume and become a full-time job for her rather than her other job duties.
Okay.
So a little bit of information. So our public disclosure expert went to work for Richland for $6 an hour more. And so we're in the process of retraining, reference to all of the things you have to overcome when you're releasing public records, especially when they're police records. and we're in that process now. I believe the law requires you to appoint a public disclosure person. I don't think you have an option. You have to pick one, and they have to act as that person that says, no, this needs to go here, this needs to go there, I get this. And by law, you have to do that. So you want to be cautious that you're not violating the law.
So I see our Deputy Director of IS is here. Would you be willing to come and put your 2 bits in on what we're discussing?
I'd be more than happy to answer questions.
Just how does this impact your office? You guys have access to a lot of this stuff. What do you see as the process or an efficient way to handle this properly?
I'm in no way equipped to handle any legal requirements.
Certainly.
Here, but our office has historically gathered records for respective departments, and as Jeff mentioned, we have a light share of responsibilities with that. We might turn the records over to the PA's office or HR, whichever department is.
So gathering is
responsible for
easy, somebody else
Gathering
reviews.
is fairly easy. Determining search requirements is kind of difficult at times, but there needs to be that person who is kind of the county's representative to kind of direct whether it's policy or practice on how to handle this stuff so that the county doesn't find itself in legal issues by not responding to records in the appropriate manner.
Thank you.
If I could just add to that a little bit, just to share kind of from a practical point of what issues have come up if you don't have a change. Even with a designated public records officer, we've had an issue where a person made a records request. It was in particular a request for records that the records request was disseminated then to the auditor's office as well as the assessor's office. The auditor's office looked at it and goes, oh, we don't have anything in that department. The person that received it, this member of the public, then reaches out to me going, wait a minute, they have to have these records because I've had this email exchange with the person. Well, that was a person in a different department. But it could have been interpreted as, oh, that it's the county responding and saying there are no responsive records, when in fact, the other department, the assessor's office, was still conducting their search. It was a pretty extensive review looking at data and things like that. So that's one of the ideas that I think as we come up with the idea, it's not just designating a public records officer, but having kind of a coordinated function within the county, someone that has knowledge of basically all the departments so that when a request for records comes in, that person would have the knowledge to know that record that they're seeking is going to be from the assessor's office. They would then coordinate, get all the records gathered, and then you have kind of a designated point of contact that would then respond to the typically a private citizen requesting the information. And that way there's a coordinated effort saying, hey, we've disseminated your request to the various departments. We believe that the records may be within the auditor's office or assessor's office. We've received an estimate that it's approximately 5 days, or it could be up to 30 days to process the request. That way there's kind of this person that's in charge of coordinating that effort rather than simply one office responding saying, hey, we don't have any records, and then leaving that individual requester believing that, oh, they're denying my request when I know in fact there is some records. So it does require, I think, more than just an appointment of an officer. I think it's worthy of a discussion for us to figure out how do we want to navigate public records. And as mentioned by Jeff, this is just becoming an increase. We've adopted this process where we at least have a software program that is helpful for at least tracking the request, and it helps us all be responsive and making sure that people get their records. Like if they're looking for assessment information, that was a big issue. And so we want to be able to streamline being able to get that information to people that are making that request and trying to be as timely as possible.
So Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
couple questions. Sean.
Yeah.
This influx of public records request, estimated wise, I'm not looking for a solid number. What's this costing the taxpayers?
That is a hard, when you look at the sheriff's office was having basically one individual. That was the primary. I think they had some other responsibilities as well, but that was almost keeping a full FTE within one department employed. Jeff in my office, that's probably a big part between Jeff and Mackenzie, our other civil attorney, keeping her busy and giving her the opportunity to look up and coordinate with the departments. I think the board had asked about like IS, and so IS gets a request. Typically, that will come through our office. So let's say the auditor's office gets a request for public records, and it relates to certain emails with key terms. We then coordinate with Bo or the IS department, and we come up with an idea of, hey, these are some probably key search terms that will likely lead to responsive records that the individual has requested. So you're talking about a person within the IS department assisting on these projects. You're talking about someone from legal. You're talking about the various departments that are or hit with a request specifically, as well as a person in the commissioner's office that is trying to coordinate it. So to answer that question, when you start calculating FTE, looking at a person that is assigned to it, you're probably talking about the equivalent of about 4 FTEs for the whole county. Because it does require a joint effort. It's really hard to parcel out because that's one of the things that we have to do when we're navigating an estimated response. We try to get, and what we found, frankly, is most helpful is we are proactive. In other words, if we get a request that looks like, oh my gosh, this is going to ask for thousands of emails, we will reach out to the requester and say, look, we're trying to help you because this is going to take potentially months, if not up to a year. We have to do what's called a reasonable and diligent search, but also because we are public servants and we have other duties, we have to balance that with all the other duties and obligations within our respective offices. So
The reason I'm asking
Yeah.
this, Sean,
Yeah.
is because it is a public records request.
yes,
And I think as a county, this should be put on our county website of who is asking for these public records requests. Would there be a problem with posting people that are asking and what they're asking for?
that's
That
certainly
way
a
the public
record.
knows who
Yeah.
is asking for all this information, and we can be more clear about why we're having to do this.
And just to be clear, this isn't something that Franklin County alone. This
I
is
know.
something, yeah, this is something every state. Every
I agree.
state has a form of FOIA or public records request. One of the things that we try to do is try to look for streamlining so that if we've done a public records request, it's conducted, and then say somebody hears about, hey, there was some records that were recently released. I'd like to get the same records. Then we could look at the list and say, oh, that seems to be an identical request.
Exactly.
We've already done the work, and now
Yes.
we can provide it.
We
And
post
so-
it, that way
yeah.
they can go right to there and they can get all the records they want already without asking us to do more work. This is my whole point.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that has been helpful is, I don't think it's morphed into this yet, but I think the plan was when we went with this software-based collection of information, the idea was that it would generate almost like a kiosk effect where members of the public could go in and they could see, hey, I want to see a list of all the public records that have gone out. And most people will request the records if it's in digital format. We're not obligated to make copies. If we do make copies at their request, then we could charge reasonable costs for making copies. But if it's in digital format as its native state, then we provide it digitally.
But with
And-
that, I also want the
yeah.
name of the person asking for the request.
Yeah, yeah. And
Put their name out there too, that they've asked for this information, it's provided here. If you want to look it up and you can utilize it, it's there already. We don't have to do another request.
And Jeff, I don't know if you've even had a chance to look into that. I know the module that was set up was really designed for that kind of idea where you could look at requests, you could see the request, so that way if there was information that's out there, it actually wouldn't take time of county departments, because if it's on its own portal, the public could go into that and maybe they could actually find what they're looking for without even touching on a department. And so I don't know if you've been able to look at that. I know that was kind of done many years ago when that whole module was set
I
up.
would just say at the outset that the requester is not required to identify themselves. So they could have like a pseudonym or something, but most people do provide their name. So in terms of answering your question, yeah, you could put whatever information they provide us on the website. I don't know if there's a technical issue with that, if we'd run into because of the amount of requests, that would seem to take a lot of, I don't know, like memory on our server. It would be okay. You'd be able to do that.
There's not a interconnected part from one system to the other, but I'm sure we could find a way to streamline that.
Okay.
There is the ability in that system to take an existing request and make it public. So we do have that in the current system. It's just not well utilized.
And,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Bo, I have a question. I just want to know, what kind of time are you spending on these public records requests?
It's going to vary, but I think I'd be safe in saying we probably have at least 3 hours a week, if not more, spent towards public records, which, like I said, we're not doing the heavy lifting. We're providing data, which is easy for us, but when I provide another department thousands, tens of thousands of emails, they're definitely getting the lion's share of the work as they have to review that and possibly redact it.
And I'm curious as why they don't have to give their name.
You're not allowed to consider the identity of the requester in responding to a request, and so you can't compel them to give their full name if they don't want to. In fact, some of the people who do game the system won't give their full name, because if you Google them, you'll see, oh my gosh, this person sues agencies by sort of you know, giving ambiguous requests. So it's just
How would we change that?
the state legislature would have to change the public records law, which that's a whole nother can of worms, I guess.
Would this be a proper thing to put in a workshop like next week to bring in HR, IS, legal, and just, you know, to have a somewhat organized thing so that we can go through this process and kind of come out of it with a path forward?
Frankly, with all due respect, this would be a perfect project for a county administrator that has experience dealing with public records and could head up the team, because they're going to have knowledge of every department and figure out a way that meets the board's requirements, whether that's working with IS to build up a platform that would be putting it on our website where people could get that information. I think a workshop is an excellent idea, and that's something that I think that coordinated effort really is something of why a public records officer for the county is an important role and responsibility for the board, because that is one of our biggest areas of risk, is if we're late or if we miss something and then we get hit with a lawsuit, years later, there's a potential where they could get daily penalties and things like that. That's why we try to always interact with the requester to make sure that we're being proactive. In other words, I think we're a government of the people, so if people are requesting their records, we're trying to be as proactive as possible in figuring out, I think you're asking this. Is this really what you're looking for? Oh, yes. Because we've had that interaction several times where it would have taken potentially months to meet the request, but after interacting with the person, they realized that, hey, we're really on their side. We're trying, because it saves us time and effort, and it gets them the records that they're wanting. And so that's something I think having a coordinated and experienced person that knows how to handle public records and how to interact with the various departments that we have in the county is very beneficial.
I agree with you, having interacted in the public records request realm from the outside requesting records. It's not difficult if there's open communication to get what it is you're looking for, and sometimes it's, somebody doesn't ask a question quite right. They know what they're trying to find, but a little bit of communication can make it certainly much simpler. And I do agree with you that this is the role of a county administrator. Our county, right, wrong, or indifferent, has been set up and structured to be run by a county administrator. And if we do want to go away from a county administrator role, it's going to take time to go from where we are today into a role where we don't have that person involved. And so I agree with you. However, I'm one vote. And so we don't have the luxury of having a county administrator right now, and think that we need to address this. So I suppose a workshop next week, if everybody would try to bring some thoughts to that. Would like to have workshop next week and discuss it further and say, this is what forward looks like.
I think that's a great idea.
Oh, Commissioner, so we have a consensus on the email. Are we good to let IS put in an out of office and send it to the administrative assistant for review?
It's fine with me.
And just to recap what this is really asking for, right now, any emails that would come to the county administrator, they're going to receive just a generic out of office. What we're proposing is an out of office response that would identify a particular name. Those emails are already being forwarded to this individual to make sure that we're not missing key information or information requested. So we're just looking for a consent of the board to be able to put that out of office email with the contact information, or does the board have somebody else in mind to be the recipient of all those forwarded emails? And do they have a different idea for who to put on there as a point of contact for information from people from at large that might have interacted with the previous county administrator? Any emails that come into that inbox will need to be answered and potentially responded to in a timely manner. So that's what we're looking for.
And who are you suggesting?
The administrative assistant, so it's been Jennifer.
Yeah, my consensus to send it to Jennifer at this point.
She's doing the Board of Equalization. She's got a lot of things on her, not anymore.
He doesn't do the Board of Equalization. That's Maria.
Oh, Maria. Okay, well, she was doing it, and then Maria's taking that over. Okay, I'm good with it then. I just didn't want to overwhelm her.
Sure, she appreciates that. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right.
Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Briggs, do you have any thing that needs to come before the board today?
No, we talked about the public records meeting, so I think we've belabored that point a bit. But I look forward to updating the board once we have that meeting today at the workshop next week to see what the thought is from the electeds. But hopefully, if we can centralize our process more, we can sort of take a lot of the work and make sure we're not duplicating it across different elected offices. So.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bauman.
Don't have a big update. A short week with the celebration of the most amazing country that has ever graced the face of the earth. We got to celebrate Happy Birthday America last week, and that was really enjoyable. Got to be in the Grand Ole 4th of July parade here in Pasco, and also got to go to the Freedom Rodeo up in Basin City, and really excited to see how that's growing in our community, how well it's been received. And I was told there was over 5,500 people in Basin City on the 4th of July. That's pretty spectacular, and really excited to see what that's doing in our community, all the people that it's supporting, and the community is really liking that. They shared some of their plans for what some of their next steps are, building some box seating above the chutes, and potentially having concerts and so forth out there, and think that that's pretty amazing that that's gone from starting in 2020 to being the number 4 rodeo in the Pacific Northwest. Pretty impressive. I believe they're number 3 in the purse that's available to the contestants, and hundreds of contestants, and offer an opportunity in our community for those that want to go and participate in the slack time, even if they don't want to compete. It's pretty amazing to be there and watch that, and all the dedicated individuals and the hundreds and thousands of hours that have gone into volunteer efforts to make that what it is. Just really excited to see that grow. I have had a lot of phone calls and over-the-phone meetings, have had a number of in-person meetings from Track Center to other concerns of constituents around the county. And that's my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Didier?
Yeah, I'd like to announce I got this email from Ben Franklin Transit. Ben Franklin Transit Update 2024 to 2030 Transit Development Plan is available for review at, and it's got the site. I think that the county should post this. Members of the public are encouraged to review the plan and feedback. Ben Franklin Transit has identified future transit improvements to the level of the program and projects, a balance of budget against capital improvements. We are always interested in ways to improve it. Public, this is your opportunity. And as I have been in looking for parts, I'm looking at these buses driving Pasco, and they're empty. One rider. Now's our time. You got this comment period, start speaking out. We could really definitely improve the transit system by getting away from this federal money that they dangle that carrot, and then we got to play their game. And that's what it is. These big buses are because of federal money, and then we've got to play their game. We could move people around the Tri-Cities so much more efficiently with this 0.6%, bringing in roughly $60 million a year. Hell, we could almost hire everybody a chauffeur and drive them around town and save money. It's ridiculous. Their budget is, I don't want to be off target here. What is the budget for Ben Franklin Transit now total with all the, I think it's 130 million?
That's with all of the
Everything.
extras. The operating and the management is, I believe, 57 million.
We got this water park going in. They want to buy property out there, prime property, and build another hub. If that water park wants Ben Franklin Transit to deliver those people to their facility, accommodate us. That's Ben Franklin Transit. I sit on the board. Accommodate us, water park. Put in a spot for people to be dropped off. We don't need to buy ground and build another building. I am fed up with this because they are flush with money. I don't know how much they got in reserve. It keeps growing. It's a lot of money, and there's nobody riding these buses. So now's our time to comment.
Unallocated reserves is 24 million.
So with that, I'll move down to coming into the office here the other day. I witnessed going away from the office on Glade Road. There was a flag car, 10 tractors with rakes, another flag car, and behind it was 50 cars. It was right before the Esquatzel. We have a pull-off spot to let cars go by. Farmers, don't give us a bad name. Pull off the side of the road and let these cars clear. We have had multiple accidents for people passing in areas that are dangerous because they get so frustrated and they're behind slow-moving vehicles. Accommodate them. And Craig, we need to put more of this in. I've been talking, I want to put one in on my property. And there's already one there by the spud cellar you can pull off. And one guy did pull off the other day. I wave at him. We got to start accommodating the people driving the roads. If we don't get off the way and let them get by, we're going to cause wrecks, and we already have. It has happened. We've got to be more accommodating as farmers to moving the equipment off the road to let them go by and clear behind you. Then I got this warning sent to me. It was from the BPA. Heat is causing an increase in demand which could exceed their capacity to deliver power. BPA may have to drop power to one of our substations in the Eltopia area in the next few days. And they must got an influx of calls because they put out another notice said that we are not going to do that. If they drop power to a substation in Eltopia and those circles go off, those crops die in this heat. You've got to water it. I don't know if this was a test or what this was to see what the public sentiment was going to be, but I think they were over-inundated with phone calls. I hope they were. And then I've had phone calls from people that have attended HAPO events, and it's concerning because there was a gas leak where they had to shut it down and people had to leave, and there was an air conditioning failure on our new air conditioner, and I know we have a presentation with McKinstry, so I hope I can get some feedback from them, but they had to cancel an event midway through it because the air conditioner wasn't working. And I've got people calling me on this. So we got to make sure before we take control of this from McKinstry that we've got an operational, we've paid a lot of good money for that air conditioner. We got to make sure it is fully operational for any event we have. And then I want to know about the bid process for the other side of the HAPO Center. Where are we at on this bid process for the other air conditioner? I thought we were last week was the deadline for bids, was it not?
Right. We are going to, I believe, pull that and do a design build. So a design bid build instead of a design build. Because our initial RFP, we're basically requesting that somebody come in and do a proposal for the design of the HVAC as well as the construction cost. So all in one. And there's some concern that may not meet the public bidding requirements. There's an exception for extensions of HVAC, but it's not clear if that applies in this situation. So what we need to do then is have an architect design that system and then put that out for RFP prior to. And so we sort of, we can't combine the two steps. So we're going to.
And we can't start generating money from that other side until we get an air conditioner in there. There's no event that can go on in this heat on that side.
That's probably the case, yeah. I don't know.
We need to get moving on this. We got to get it going. We're not going to be successful unless we have a arena with an air conditioner that can be used, especially in this heat. Thank you. That's the end of my report.
All right, so last week had the Greater Columbia Behavioral Health meeting, also had the Metro Task Force meeting, and then also I see now that Booker Auction has the horse stalls and the panels listed on their website for the sale. So anybody that's interested in that, I would encourage you to go to the Booker website and take a look at the horse stalls. The bidding will open on the 25th of July, and the final sale date is August 1st. So any interest in the horse stalls or the panels out at the HAPO Center, please take a look at the Booker website and bid often and frequently. So with that, we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone in the room for public comment?
George Dockstetter, South Landing Road, Pasco. I haven't commented lately because I didn't know if the courthouse was bugged or not. Didn't want anybody doing my conversations, but then I realized this was live so everybody could hear me anyway. One of the things, couple things that bother me, we're sitting here doing all these BS workshops and you're missing the biggest one out there that you should be working on, and that's the budget. Last week when I was here, you spent $668,000 for attorneys. I don't know any attorney in town that's worth that much. I don't even know any 50 of them that are worth that much. So you're wasting, hell, I realize we're required by law, but where's the money coming from? You guys need to sit down in here and get this thing straightened out. Either tell us we're cutting this or raising our taxes. But you can't sit there, we're halfway through the year, and I haven't seen one thing yet on the budget or what we're cutting or how we're raising money. I don't even know what the status is. How far in the hole are we? And then the other thing is, you guys sit here and talk, well, maybe we don't need an administrator. But you guys sure as hell don't spend 40 hours a week in here. All three of you have your own businesses that take time. You don't have time to spend all day in here, 5 days a week, taking care of county business. So you need to pull your heads out and start thinking about that. Who's going to be down here 5 days a week, 8 hours a day? And if 2 of you are down here, then you got to post it in the paper and make it a public meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room for public comment? Do we have any callers on the phone? Last call, public comment, anyone? All right. Jeff, do we need an executive session today?
No.
All right.
I would like to call for an executive session under 42.30.110(1I) for 15 minutes.
All right, so at this point, we'll go into executive session for 15 minutes. Who do you request to be in the room?
HWL, the Board of County Commissioners, and legal counsel.
Thank you. All right, the time is 10:05. We will go into executive session for 15 minutes. Request that the board, legal, and HWL be present. Do we want Joel as president as well?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. So we've come out of executive session. We are going to go back into executive session for approximately 20 minutes under the same RCW code. I would request that legal, the Board of Commissioners, HWL be present along with Joel. 20 minutes. come out of executive session. We've come out of executive session with no decisions being made. At this point, we need to amend the agenda. And
Mr. Chairman, I'd move for amending the agenda under regular business, item number 7, and to put in that, to put on the agenda for today, the contract for the Hapo Center in the arena.
I second.
Been a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move with that new agenda item to withdraw the, what would the wording that I'm looking for here? To withdraw the Hapo Center Arena RFP
For HVAC.
for HVAC.
I second.
Been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none. This meeting is adjourned. At this point, I will call the workshop to order. Approval of workshop agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of workshop agenda items 1 and 2 as presented.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opening it up to public comment, limited to workshop agenda items only, and limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone for public comment? Hearing none, we will move on to the presentation of the workshop. First item on the agenda is the HAPO's gratuity. Recently, there was an event at HAPO, and if I understand it correctly, the bill was paid with the included gratuity that would go towards the workers at the event.
Chairman, yes, we had...
Would you speak into the mic, please?
We had a gratuity that was submitted with the original bill, and so the payment went straight to the county, and we were seeking a way to get the gratuity separated so we could pay it to the employees, know who it was given to. And so we never really got a response, so now it's been a few months, so we're looking for to expedite that money to the employees.
Sure. Was it a joint venture as far as the gratuity, the recipients? Was it part of the people from HWL and SVM?
It was, and so we went ahead and took the total employees, the hours they worked, and divided into the gratuity, so it'll be spread out evenly amongst both. So there's 2 checks that are going to be requested. 2 bills have been submitted, one for $6,000, one for $7,000, to pay for those gratuities.
All right. And those gratuities would be part going to HWL, and the other check would go to SVM. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And what was the participation of HWL's employees that were part of the gratuity?
Their gratuity cost total would come to about $6,000, approximately $500 a head.
Okay. Any further questions from my fellow commissioners?
So it would be $7,000 paid to SVM and $6,000 to HWL, and this is simply the people that rented the facility. They paid this gratuity. It's not. This isn't coming from the county. It's just simply they paid it to us, and we're going to send it back to SVM and HWL so that they can give to their employees.
That is correct. The original bill for the HAPO Credit Union event came to about $77,000. They put an 18% gratuity on there for the employees, which brought the total bill to approximately $91,000. And so it was submitted in one check, and that was the issue and the problem. We took it up to the county to see how we could remit that money back. And really, we had a problem, getting some bills taken care of here as of recent. And so, like I said, that's what we'd like to kind of expedite these. The employees have been waiting several months now.
Jeff, do you have any issues as far as issuing those checks? How can we expedite this program?
No, I think that was, what Wes is describing sounds consistent with the agreements we already have in place. So I think to retain that amount would be more than we bargained for. So I don't see an issue with giving the funds back so they can be provided to the workers.
Mr. Chair,
The chair recognizes Commissioner Bauman.
do we need to take formal action in a commissioners meeting, or can we have consensus? I believe consensus is appropriate.
Well, I think Mr. Harris had indicated that there would be a request for checks coming, and so perhaps once that request comes, it could be on the consent agenda.
Yeah.
Issue those.
And the chair recognizes Commissioner Didier.
Well, Wes, how long has this been? 2 months?
27 April.
We need to try to expedite this to get those
Yes.
individuals.
Next
taken
week, we
care
need
of.
to have it on the agenda. But Wes, I just want to say thank you for using your own personal credit card to pay our garbage pickup. I want to thank you, sir.
I appreciate that.
You're going
Thank you.
above and beyond the call of duty to work with Franklin County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I received a jobber and process the two checks to accounting yesterday. The one that you were talking about.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer.
Very good.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Jennifer.
All right, well, sounds like,
Underway.
Thank you.
thank you, and we apologize for the delay. So
no
I'm
problem.
glad we got it taken care of. Thank you. Moving on to presentation, workshop discussion number 2, McKinstry, Department of Commerce and Franklin County Solar Agreement.
Don't look at me in that tone of voice. I got answers for you.
Oh.
No, I got some answers for you. Commissioners, thank you. Appreciate you guys inviting me down here on the hottest day of the year. Beautiful drive down here when it was 90 degrees coming down through the basin. But glad I'm here. Last week, I received an email from the Department of Commerce with their final, with a draft of the proposed contract for the HAPO solar project that we applied the grant for review and some updates. And I believe I sent that down to Teresa that she distributed for you guys so that legal and you guys could have a few moments or some time to look it over. Any questions that you might have that I'm here to address in regards to that. And this is for the Solar Plus Battery Storage Grant that I believe started almost 2 years ago before I came on board with McKinstry.
Questions?
So a couple of questions for you. On this program, I've been trying to come up to speed. We've spoken about this at length.
Yes, sir.
So on this battery, so it's going to be a solar array that will charge a battery.
Correct.
And so this battery is simply a storage device. And when I say simply a storage device, there's a couple of different ways I believe you can do this. You can store it and use it in an emergency case only, or you can charge during the cheap time of the day and expend during the expensive time of the day.
Affirmative.
There's some risk involved in that, and some of that risk would be if you're expending the battery during the expensive time of the day and you have an event where you lose power, you now have a depleted reservoir. Could you speak to that in brief? And if we were to do that to some extent, is there value in that? And what I mean by that is do we need, in an emergency event, do we need the full battery capacity, or is 50% adequate so that we could use the top 50% of the bucket, so to speak?
And that's a great question.
Complicated question.
No, actually, it's really not, though. I mean, if you look at it, so originally the whole design behind purpose behind this was to be able to use the HAPO as an emergency center for the National Guard, Red Cross, and stuff like that in case of any type of natural disaster that went on down here in the Franklin County Tri-Cities area. Was the purpose behind it. So the battery was supposed to be storage that can be used, and obviously can be used and recharged as you use it. So if you were selling it back or expending it, using part of it, and you had an event going on, you have control over whether you're expending it or not. So if Joel says, hey, we've got an event going on Thursday, we want to make sure, just in case, but because of the heat and stuff like that, and if there's been rolling brownouts or whatever, we want to make sure that we're not expelling anything, that we have a full battery charge. You have control over that to use it as you please. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't automatically operate on and off.
Correct.
But you could go push the button and make it do what you wanted it to do.
Literally flip the switch and say, no, we don't want you right now. We want to hold on to what we have stored in here just for that type of situation.
Okay, and then I'm trying to pull up the wording on this, but it appears, and I'm trying to find where that I could point you to, but I don't see it at the moment. It appears to be that we are the contractor, so to speak, and you are a subcontractor, so that it appears to be the way that this contract is written, that we would be responsible for your inefficiencies, or we would be responsible for anything that you did. I believe, and I can't point this to you, I believe it would be more appropriate if you were the contractor that were responsible for the performance of the project.
So
can you speak to that?
I can speak to that, Commissioner. So the contract for the grant is because you are the public entity. The grant has to be, you apply for the grant. We cannot apply for the grant as we're not a public entity. Therefore, the grant goes to the county. As the county ESCO, you go under contract with DES and us. We then take responsibility. We are the ones that assume the responsibility once this goes under contract. The money goes to you. Obviously, you're the middleman. So basically, the contract between the state and the state Department of Commerce and the county, Franklin County, is for the awarding of the $1.5 million of funds for this project. As this county ESCO, we then take over as responsibility anything that just like with phase one or the work that we've done on here, we have full responsibility for all things that go on within the building process until the project's complete and it's been turned back over to the county. The onus goes on us. It doesn't go on to you guys.
So just to sort of echo Commissioner Bauman's concerns, I'm Jeff Briggs, by the way. I'm
Jeff, I've heard your name, but I didn't know the last name.
You must be Sean Pelfrey?
I am Sean Pelfrey.
So that's sort of my concern here is, so this contract is well in excess of what would be required under the statute of frauds to, so it has to be in writing. We're signing it, and looks like DES is signing it, but I don't see that McKinstry's signing this. So McKinstry must have a separate contract then with DES?
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
So I'm going to take a step back a little bit. When the first phase of HAPO came through, and Commissioner Mullen, Commissioner Didier, and I can't remember the other commissioner's name, I never met him.
Brad Beck.
Commissioner Beck were here. They went through a process with DES to choose an ESCO, Energy Services Company. So we went through a public choice, and the county chose McKinstry as the ESCO. So our contract actually sets with DES. The county has the contract with DES as the oversight, and then we were chosen by the county as the ESCO. So it's kind of to me, it's a little bit of a convoluted system because I come from the military. So it's kind of like, but that's kind of it. So you're the county, you're DES, and you're McKinstry. You guys sign a contract. you manage all the contracts, we do the work, and everything flows through you for your checks and balances. So to make sure that the county is completely covered in case of audit, in case of anything that goes on like that, you have oversight of everything that we do.
And that's DES.
That's DES.
Which is the Department of Enterprise Services.
Affirmative.
So they are the contracted QC for the project.
Technically, yes.
And so they should be reporting to the county on McKinstry's performance.
We usually we have done the reporting like on progress and stuff like that. I would actually have to talk with Alyssa, who is the DES representative, to find out I don't know what her communication with the county was prior with Mr. Gonzalez or the previous administration. I don't know. I wasn't around for that part of it.
So what is, so right now, the contract that exists, and I don't know if this is overlap, so the DES and ESCO and Franklin County contract is the solar system and the south side air conditioning system. Is that one contract, or are those completely separate?
So phase one, which I believe is the south side.
Okay.
Is
Southside AC.
Was the Southside AC was one contract.
Okay.
With the proposal for the solar plus battery storage was based on two things. One, to make HAPO as an emergency resource center. The other, to help Franklin County, to help Franklin County meet the clean building performance standards by bringing the levels down and mitigate the levels for the HAPO Center in conjunction with phase two.
And that's the solar array.
That would be, yeah. So that's
solar array and battery, which is one system.
Which is one system. And then with the second phase of HAPO that you're looking at would complete the process to make the HAPO Center within compliance for the state, so there's no fines and you guys aren't held responsible anything from the state.
So phase one is the south side AC, phase two is the solar array, and phase three would be the north side arena?
I guess you could say that. We had put phase two as the north side and solar array just as itself, but yes, it would be a three-phase system.
So these three projects, three phases, whatever, so these are contracted individually?
Yes.
So phase one is one contract, the solar array and battery is a second contract, and phase three, the north side, would be a completely separate third?
Correct. So initially when we were contracted with Franklin County and we started this whole process, we were looking at multiple different variables when it came to the HAPO Center. And based on what the order of importance was from the county. And the original was the arena, was the original focus. And then from my understanding, because again, this was before I joined the organization, was that the Expo Center had massive failures with their HVAC system, and it became the priority based on the budget and the money that the county had available. So we broke it into phases. We proposed three or four different phases in the original plan based on what the county could spend. So phase one then became the Expo Center and atrium. Then phase two became, when the money became available, would be the arena side. The solar plus battery array was written in there because as we looked at the energy usage, we needed to get down to a certain level, and this would just kind of make sure that we capped it under there, even with upgrades to the HVAC, to the lighting, and to the stuff that we're doing for efficiency. We wanted to make sure that the county got completely under it, and then was able to utilize the facility and any types of emergency as a resource for the county. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, I believe I understand. So backing up, as I've learned this, so previous to phase 1, 2, and 3, McKinstry did an energy grade audit.
Yes.
So Franklin County, I'm guessing this is the way it happened. Franklin County paid McKinstry to do an energy grade audit to then provide a priority of what's needed and a phasing recommendation for how to do that.
Affirmative.
So that was basically the first step was we contracted with McKinstry to provide this energy grade audit and with recommendations attached to it.
Yes.
Which was separate from the 3 different phases.
Correct. So it's actually an investment grade audit that we did.
Investment grade, I thought, that's right. I remembered energy, but you're right, it's investment.
Yeah, so, and we took a look at it, we looked at energy usage, we looked at where you guys were at based off of previous, a 2-year previous history of power usage, and what levels you guys were at that point, based on the equipment that was in the building. We then took a look at what, based on the Clean Building Performance Standards, the state said you needed to be at. And that's where we took the 2 and we made our recommendations, what the upgrades would be, how we can mitigate those levels to bring them down to where you guys were within compliance based on state regulations.
So we have, first off, we have an investment grade audit, came with recommendations, which followed up with Southside AC Phase 1, and today we're discussing the solar battery project. So where are we at with the solar project? So we have received the grant.
So you've been awarded the grant. This is the final part of getting the grant awarded, is for you to review this, say yes, sign it, or Commissioner Mullen to sign it. It goes back to Commerce. Whoever the representative will be for the county as my main point of contact would then contact Alyssa with DES and say we are ready to move forward with the solar project, because we've already done the IGA, we've got it planned out and everything like that, that they're ready to go forward. She'll issue the contracts between do the contracting phase for the professional services and for the construction. We'll order equipment, we'll begin that next phase.
So if we were to say we changed our mind, we don't want this, it would really be no harm, no foul at this point. However, we just simply, we would not achieve the next step in the energy code compliance with the facility.
So that is true. So you could, at this point, you could go and say, we don't want to do this. We don't have anything. How that affects you as far as future grants go through Commerce, I don't know. I'm not familiar with that, because you have accepted it. At one point, but I'm almost guaranteed, and I'm looking at you, Jeff, because you're the legal mind here, that there have to be outs in it that you guys can say, because of our budget right now, our matching funds we want to use somewhere else, whatever it is, and that would be completely up to the county.
So with the investment grade audit that was done, it was in the opinion of McKinstry that phase 1 and 3, the air conditioning for the north and the south side would have gotten us in close to compliance, and the solar array opportunity that came, that was awarded, would put us fully in compliance?
Correct.
So the fully air conditioning plus the solar array would put us fully in compliance with the 2026 target that we've been headed towards.
Correct.
That's all the questions I have for the moment.
I did have a question about dispute resolution. Are the terms in this contract, are they similar to the other phases? I don't have those in front of me, but.
No, so this is because this is through Commerce. So, and Commissioner Didier, correct me if I'm incorrect on this. The money that came for phase 1 was through ARPA funds, primarily, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it was different pools of money. So this contract here is through the Washington State Department of Commerce as a grant awarded specifically for public entities, municipalities in the state of Washington for solar and battery storage. So the wording in this contract that we're looking at today would have been different than what we had done what you did previously, because the pools are different, the contract that will be between DES, the county, and McKinstry will pretty much be, it's boilerplate. It's across the board the same. That part will be the same. This is just the award letter and contract between saying that, hey, we're going to give you the money, you guys are going to put solar and battery on there, and that's it. Does that make
Right.
sense?
No, I guess I wasn't sure if it was the same as the prior contracts, but I still have that concern regarding McKinstry not being a party to this. We're listed as the contractor, but we're not doing any of the construction.
No.
But in the event there is a breach, so termination for cause as determined by Commerce, we could be on the hook for the grant fund to repay that to Commerce.
Well, you would have,
As
so
the contractor.
as the contractor, you hold the money.
Right.
So and then again, I can't give legal advice because I didn't go to law school. I understand your concerns though.
Right.
Knowing that I have not seen a reason for cause unless there was some kind of something egregious that came out, and that's not my company.
Right.
We don't go and just say, we're extremely transparent on everything that we do. We do Commerce grants and stuff all the time. We work very closely with Commerce for energy, for EV, for everything else. I've never seen or heard of anything where there's been something egregious that would cause a contract to be canceled.
And that's the world that we live in as attorneys, is trying to think of the worst case scenario.
I completely and totally respect that. I really do.
Right.
I've just and I know where you're coming from.
Right.
And again, I like how your mind works.
Because when everything goes off without a hitch, it's why did it take so long? But when it doesn't, when there's a problem, it's well, legal said it was okay. They screwed up.
No,
and I'm looking at this thinking, well, the dispute resolution process would be between ourselves as the contractor and DES. But if there is an issue with the construction, which is what Commissioner Baumann had alluded to originally, we're the contractors. So what would we go to DES and say, there's a problem here? DES is going to say, well, you're the contractor under the agreement.
No,
So how would that play out?
Because you've turned, when you sign the contract with DES, they assume responsibility, which goes to us. DES is your oversight. So they are your oversight. They're your quality control. So the Franklin County is not in the construction business.
Right.
No offense. You guys aren't in the construction. We are the contractor. This is the contract between you and the state, because they're giving you the money.
Right.
Not how you did what now. You're going to go out and okay, now we're going to do another state agency, which is DES. And they're our quality control. They're our oversight. We've chosen, McKinstry is our ESCO. They're going to do the work. So now all the burden goes onto us. Again, this is where our transparency, this is where all the stuff that we do, this is where we do on a daily basis comes into play. So it takes the onus off of you and it puts it all on us. That's part of the ESCO.
Right.
That's one of the benefits of the ESCO process. Is it takes the responsibility off of the municipality and places it on us as your ESCO.
Right. So it kind of sounds like we're speaking the same language here. I just don't see that in the language of the agreement. So it's probably something, because it's between us and DES, I'd want to go to them directly and see what sort of revisions we might be able to make.
And Jeff, if you want to, I can set up a call. I can try to get Alyssa and David, who is the contact with Commerce, and get the four of us on a call, if it would clear your mind, just to answer. Excuse me. To answer those questions.
Yeah. I can't guarantee to clear my mind, but it would certainly. I think it'd be a step in the right direction.
They're more legally minded than I am.
Sure.
I'm just a soldier, man.
So, question about the McKinstry being the ESCO for the county.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware if there's a contract or not. Are you in contract with the county as the official ESCO for a period of time? or?
As long as you want me.
Is in perpetuity, or do we give notice of termination, or I have no idea how that contract is.
From my understanding, as you, when you chose us as your ESCO, we are your ESCO until you tell us that you no longer want to work with us. It's not, I mean, it's not a binding, like, obviously, you know, you had another company come in and do an energy audit. You know, you don't have to use us for every project. But in situations that are like design build projects, you can go to us and say, hey, we want to do this as design build, and we are, as an ESCO, we can do design build. And you don't have, and as I've talked with all three of the commissioners previously, everything we do is in-house. We do the architectural work, we do the design work, we do all the engineering, and then we move forward with the next phase of it. So it prevents you guys from having to go through CPARB. It prevents you guys from running into the issues that you had with the previous RFP. So we're your ESCO as long as you want us to be your ESCO.
I would just say I agree with that. I think if you wanted to choose a new ESCO, you'd probably have to start over with a new investment grade audit.
Well,
I don't know, you could piggyback off of another.
To choose a new ESCO, you could do it a couple ways. You could put out an RFP for an ESCO, and then which is the same thing that happened before. And then those that reply, whether it's Apollo, Mac Miller, Wiegand's, there's 10 of them, I believe, in the state total. With whoever wants to, you know, respond to the RFP would come up, and then what we do is we would present in front of the commissioners. We would meet the commissioners each individually. We would meet department heads, however you want to do it, and then you guys would make a decision based off of that on how you want to do it. You could go through Department of Enterprise Services. You can take a look at their list of the 10 ESCOs and say, we want to work with these guys, and do it that way. But then you maintain that contract with DES because you're using their list as how you want to do it.
Of those 10, I think there's only maybe a few, right, that operate in Eastern Washington.
All 10 work statewide, but we don't all do the same things. Some of them, like Johnson Controls and ESCO, but they're very focused on certain aspects of energy savings. Mac Miller is an ESCO. They do a lot of the same stuff that we do. So there is a difference, and it's also locality. So here down in the Tri-Cities, we have a shop. We have a shop in the Union Place down here in the Tri-Cities, and Apollo's down here in the Tri-Cities. We do work all over the state. I know Apollo does work all over the state. I know Mac Miller does. Like I said, those are the three primary ones. Wiegand's is kind of picky and choosy about where they kind of go. But yeah, so it would take due diligence to go through and research each one of the ESCOs to understand their specialty, their capabilities, and how they operate, and then kind of look into their background.
So a couple of questions, excuse me, that arose there in that. So looking at the contract, this is not a full grant, this is a match.
Correct.
So we would have a 10% match on the design, and then looks like a 50% match.
So hang on a second. I'm sorry, my computer told me it was going to go to sleep. 1 second there, Commissioner.
No, I think I'm...
So it's a 20% match. It's an 80-20 split, or sorry, a 70-30 split total from the max. And the Franklin County would receive its 30% back through the ITC. So 2 years ago, they passed a law for non-tax paying entities to get a tax refund on projects that are considered that fall under the investment tax credit. So you would get the money that you invest in this, you would then submit and get refunded by the federal government.
So at the end of the day, it would be 100%.
Correct.
Okay. So then back to something that you said, which I don't think is accurate. So the investment grade audit that Franklin County paid for is something that Franklin County now owns, and
Yeah.
we can use that with McKinstry, or we can use it with Mac Miller, or whoever we choose,
Yeah,
correct?
you guys have it. It's been provided to you guys
Yeah.
numerous times.
Yeah, this isn't a proprietary to McKinstry. This is something
No,
that
we went through and
paid
did
for
what you guys
performance.
asked, and we went through and did all the stuff, and we've provided all aspects of the work that we've done have been provided to the county.
Thank you.
I think, just to clarify a little bit on that point, I think what I was getting at is they may have a different take on what it's going to be, because by completing all those things, they're guaranteeing the energy performance.
Yes.
I could see another contractor coming in and saying, we think it's going to require different components to meet those standards, and so they may not want to certify the other, and so they may want to do their own audit.
Correct.
Would be my thought on that.
And Jeff, you're correct. I wouldn't, if Commissioner Didier owned an energy savings company and had decided that he wanted to bid on HAPO, he's not going to take the work he's going to take a look at the work that we did, but then he's going to say, but because it was 3 years ago, he's going to want to go back now and redo everything for his own company. He's using his design, his stuff like that to meet the things that he believes. So when we designed the work on HAPO, starting with phase 1 and going through all this stuff, there was a lot of information that was not available to us at the time based on previous management of the HAPO Center. We didn't have schedules. There was stuff that we weren't able to get a hold of. So we did a lot of estimating and workarounds, kind of worst case scenarios. So instead of saying, well, there's only going to be 5 people in there, no, we're going to say, well, there's going to be 40 people in there, type of stuff, so that we can make sure that we met, that as the work went through, we meet the levels. Now, also, since we started this project, technology has been advanced. So the RTU units that are outside right now that we put in, at that time, they were the only ones that were available at that size for that kind of facility. There's more competition, there's more choices and stuff like that. So if moving forward, whoever works on phase 2 can go back in and use their own engineering, their own design, and kind of figure out what is going to be the best way to move forward with phase 2 to still meet the clean building performance standards, along with what happened with phase 1 and potentially the solar project. Fair enough?
Sorry, I ask a lot of questions.
No, go ahead.
You think he was in development or something?
Any further questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if we did, as Commissioner Baumann stated, if we decide to not go through with this, the 1.5, the grant money, would then, is it going to hang in limbo for a while? We were granted that. How
We're
long?
granted it specifically for this project, Commissioner.
And for what time frame?
I believe, honestly, Commissioner, I will find out for you, because I don't know for sure.
And it's only with McKinstry then, or could it be with another contractor?
It can be with another contractor. I mean, we went into this project
Right.
under the understanding with the commissioners that we would work with you guys on this, that we were going to do the work. If you choose to go with another contractor, that is completely your choice.
But under what time frame is this award of this?
I would actually have to reach out to Commerce and ask them how soon this needs to be. I've pushed on this one for quite a while to make sure that you guys were still in the running to keep this grant money. So I know that there is a time limit because the work that has to get done. So I would probably say not that long, sir.
Okay.
Contract says the end date is June 30th of '25.
That's for construction, correct.
So you also stated that our DES rep is Alyssa. What is her last name?
I'm going to butcher it, and she's going to see this thing and get mad at me. I want to say it's Warwick.
Warwick?
Warwick.
Okay, and I have not met this person. Or
I
have
thought she was in the meeting with you, and maybe she was with Commissioner Mullen, and
I don't believe I've ever met her, but yet she's supposed to be working with us commissioners, correct?
well, I believe she was working with the county administrator originally. It was how it originally went down, Commissioner. It was prior to my coming on board with McKinstry.
Right.
So the original process, I am not aware of how that went down.
And I would like her contact information to get a hold of her and talk to her, because I would like to, if that's permissible, I'm sure it is,
course it
because
is.
we're the boss, so. And the last thing I'd like to say is thank you very much for your service to our country,
Thanks, sir.
because I know you're in the military. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any further questions?
That's a loaded question.
It's just so slowly. Yes, Commissioner Bauman.
I think that's good
Okay.
for me at this point.
All righty. Thank you for your time.
It
Appreciate
was my pleasure. And Commissioners, at any time, you guys all have my contact information.
Yep.
If there are questions, if there are concerns, if you guys want to talk about moving forward with phase 2, what you guys would like to do. I know there's a time crunch. I know that you've looked at, I know Commissioner Didier, you're worried about being able to utilize the second phase. So I know there's a time crunch that you guys are looking at. I've said this to you guys all before. We are partners with Franklin County. I have your best interest at my heart. Whether or not you guys move forward with another company or not, if you have questions or you have concerns, please feel free to reach out and talk to me. I have no problem discussing it with you guys at all. As a group, as individuals, coming down and meeting with you guys, that's completely up to you guys.
I do have an additional question. So we signed this contract. What does the next process? I know procurement will take some time. What does this look like?
So if you guys agree, if you guys take a look at this and we answer all your questions and you go, okay, I'm happy with everything, I'll reach out to Commerce and say, please send Commissioner Mullen the DocuSign, because it's all done through DocuSign. There are a couple of typos, and I had to adjust the time period on some of the stuff. There's some things that I've done on my end. First of all, they spelled my name wrong. So it would come back in a DocuSign to Commissioner Mullen. He would sign it, Commerce would sign it, and at that point, again, whoever the contact, whether it's Jeff or whoever, would reach out to DES and say, we're ready to move forward with the solar project with McKinstry, and do that part of it. That does not take long. They've seen the no-cost IGA that we've done for the solar. They have that on. The only thing that they're waiting on is your guys' being awarded the funding.
So this is Climate Commitment Act dollars, and there is a what is that called? That's been put before the people. An initiative that there's potential that the Climate Commitment Act would be repealed. Are we in jeopardy if we were to authorize moving forward and then the Climate Commitment Act were repealed? What would happen then?
Nothing. You would continue with the project. You've been awarded the funding. So the climate protection initiative, if it was repealed, would just be that there would be no further projects underneath that or funding being forwarded at that point. This funding's already been allocated. It's been awarded. So it's there. It's not, they're not going to come back halfway through the project and go, never mind, it's been repealed. This is yours for this project.
My follow-up question to that is, if the Climate Commitment Act is repealed, do we still have to follow these clean building
performance standards?
Yes.
I have absolutely no idea, Commissioner. Honestly, this has been a question that I have raised with legislatures. This is with other people outside of here. What's going to happen? November will tell a lot of different things.
That's one of the reasons why I was asking about the time frame. Because if we waited till after the elections to see if this failed, and we don't have to live up to these clean.
But the problem is that because there's the lead times and stuff like on the batteries and things like that, and if it doesn't get repealed, it puts you guys in a really big bind.
I don't know how the voters don't vote themselves a gas reduction cost of 80 cents a gallon?
Commissioner Didier, after 22 years in the military and 15 years of working around different government agencies, state, federal, and local, I don't understand anybody who votes. Anybody. Left, right, independent, none of it makes sense to me. So, I mean, I don't want to see you guys put into a bind because we're relying on one thing, but we don't know what's going to happen. That's my biggest issue is, again, we are a partner in Franklin County. And if you guys want to move forward with Apollo, with Mac Miller, with somebody else, I respect that. I understand you guys go through the ESCO process and do that. I also know that you're on a timeline for stuff. I know for financial reasons that you're looking at wanting to get the HAPO Center up and running, people to use it, fully use it. I don't want to see you guys being put in a situation where you're just scrambling for whatever comes up.
I don't believe that the Climate Commitment Act and the State Clean Building Code is interlaced. I believe that they're completely separate.
Well, the Climate Protection Act is federal funding. Clean Building Performance Standards was passed through the state legislature. Yeah. So again, it's going to, November will tell us a lot of things, but it's also going to say, well, the wheels of government turn pretty slowly.
Yep.
So, anything else, gentlemen?
No, thank you for your time.
My pleasure, Commissioner Mullen, Commissioner Bauman, Commissioner Didier.
Thank you.
I'll touch base with you before we leave and swap information. Great. Right, thanks.
At this time, I'll open it up to public comment. Is there anyone in the room with public comment that directly relates to the workshop agenda items? Yes, please come forward.
Oh, I'm wondering if we've looked at any other options besides a solar at track. I know that electric vehicle plug-ins are pretty much covered, and maybe that is also something we want to do to actually meet the clean building performance standard. And perhaps if we put those in, it'll help with the parking lot as well. So those are a couple of items that we want to look at. I don't know. I'm not sure what he's looked at or what he's given you guys as options, and that is not anything against McKinstry at all. But those are questions that I would be asking. If you've gotten a grant for something and you're only getting 20% coverage on that grant, that's a lot of money to be unsure of. So, thank you.
Thank you for that comment. So him and I had a long walk around the facility. We did talk about that. Previous administrator, we were looking into that to see about that, because you're correct. A lot of grants for electric vehicle charging are 100% without match, and so our previous administrator was looking into that. We discussed it at length, and so kind of need to reset and relook at it. But that conversation has been had, and if you have something to add to that, would love to hear.
Come on up.
Hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I know.
One of my best friends. So there are currently, the federal government, the Federal Highway Transportation Administration just released $1.3 billion for EV charging for major corridors, and the Tri-Cities is part of it. I don't know who to send the information the grant to. Obviously, the previous administrator was gone. We knew it was coming. He and I had talked about it. But I'm kind of like, I have information to send, and we have a team that is open to talking and working with you guys on looking at, at sites.
I'd be happy to look through what you had, and if I can offer you, we'll look at it with me. And so if you'd send it to us,
I'd be happy to, Commissioner. But yeah, there is a lot of money right now through federal. There is some match funds, but it's not 20%. It's like 10%. On some of it, but you can use that other grants, like you can get an EV grant through Commerce, which is state funds,
cover the 10%.
To cover the 10% or 10 or 20% based on whatever it is for that, or partnerships with your PUD. I mean, there's a bunch of different. It's kind of interesting. It was the first time I had seen them kind of list out, you know, you can have matching funds, you can have PUD funds, you can have utility funds.
They need to equal 100%.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, and you know you and I have talked about that parking lot. Obviously, it is outside of an energy resource, but if we were to put in 20 EV chargers along that road, which would mean we would have to dig up the arena or that parking lot to, you know, for power and for everything else, which would mean that it would have to be repaved, just, you know, which could be added into.
So let's add 20 EV chargers and then pave $1.5 million parking lot.
I'm just
Let's
saying.
figure that one out.
I'm just saying, there are ways that you can take energy money and allocate it. And we've had conversations with HWL about things that don't typically fall under energy, but because they can tie into other things that we can do to make it work legally. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I will send that to you, Commissioner Baumann.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anyone else in the room for public comment? Anyone on the phone? Hearing none, at this point, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
I just sent you an email.